My name is Terry Higginson. I want to say a few words about a cinema. This is a local cinema when such things existed, and they don't exist anymore. The cinema where I lived, or near where I lived, was more than just a place that showed films. It was a thing, what you might call a centre of the community. In that, nearly everybody who went to the cinema, you'd probably know because they'd be neighbours, and you'd probably see them going there and coming back. It was a centre of a community in as much as it involved, or a night at the cinema involved more than just the cinema itself. On the way there, this would be say 6 o'clock in the evening, you would pass sweet shops, which were known to us then as toffee shops. And from the area, or the environment, the hinterland of that cinema, there might be 4 or 5 that people would pass, depending on which area you lived in. So it was always customary to get a bag of sweets or something like that, toffees again as we call them, and people would very rarely go on their own, so that was another community thing. They would go with a neighbour or friends or pals or sweethearts or anything like that. There were 3 types of people who went to a cinema, or this local cinema, and I'm talking about the Gem, which was our pride and joy in Halliwell, in Brownlow Hall to be more specific. And there would be those who were so keen they'd be there at opening time before the doors were open at 6 o'clock. And those people would usually sit in their own seats, the same seats every time they went. Then there were the people who came when they felt like it, halfway through. And then you did the very strange people who went to the second house only. The first house would be 6 till 8 or 6 till 8:15, and the second house might be 8:30 to say to 10:30. The people who went at any time were always the ones who you'd hear in the second house, where the seats would rise and you'd hear clunk, 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 and the cry, "This is where we came in." And off they'd go before all the doors had been opened at the end of the 2 shows. It was a typical event between the 2 shows, that's the first house and the second house, when the curtains were drawn and the lights would go up, and a lot of people would stand up and look around them, and they'd see their neighbours and they'd wave, and they'd probably move 1 or 2 people to go and sit next to the neighbours and have a chat. And so in that sense it was a coming together of the community that you don't see anywhere now. Maybe in a local bingo hall, but even those have vanished. So it had something that you don't get from television. When television came along, everybody thought this was great. It's just like the cinema, but you don't have to go out and get wet to get there, and you can sit in your own chair. But we lost a lot of things. We lost a community thing, a community aspect of the thing. It wasn't just going to the cinema, it was going to a community centre and taking part in a community event. In addition to the first house and the second house, along with the first house and the second house, there were more than feature films. There were shorts which were shown right at the beginning of the thing, maybe what were known as 2-reelers, maybe 20 minutes or something like that. Comedians, factual films, and then following that there would be trailers for what were coming on in the next showings next week. Maybe a few weeks hence would be trailers, and people would say, we'll come and see that when it arrives, but they'd come and see it anyway. And then there was a newsreel, which was probably news maybe 3 days old, and at least you get to see what you'd heard on the wireless, and you get to see it, as it were, not in the flesh, but at least a vision of what was going on. There were advertisements between, and these were usually single shots, and in some cases slides. Local tradesmen would probably advertise their wares on slides which were made up and shown right at the beginning of the performance. At the end of the two performances, there was something that you probably wouldn't see anywhere else these days, and that was playing of the national anthem. We don't hear that much these days, but it was played at the end of the second house, as we say. Another thing about the seating in the gem, it was unique in a couple of ways. The first was that it was the only cinema that Leslie Halliwell, I think that's his name, who was the film critic, famous for Seats in All Parts, his book on the cinema. It was the only cinema in Bolton he hadn't visited of the 22. He hadn't visited the Gem. Another thing that was unique about the Gem, it was the only cinema in Bolton that had windows. And this was a performance that used to happen at the Saturday afternoon matinee with the kids in, that the windows would be left open. Presumably this was to stop mustiness and things like that that might occur to the furnishings, if you call them out in the Gem, so they let the light in. But at about 2 o'clock, the matinee would start, say, 2:15. At 2 o'clock, a uniformed gent would appear from the back of the screen with a pole, and this was greeted by a loud cheer of the kids because he was going to go around and shut the windows, shut the screens, the doors over the windows to create the darkness was needed for transmission. And he'd walk up the right-hand aisle, across the back, and as he came down to the back and he got to the last window closed, that was another cheer would go up because the matinee was ready to start. And matinees at the Gem consisted again of 2 reelers to start with, comedy things and things like that. Then the serial, which would run maybe 26 weeks and things like that. And they'd be, at the Gem, it would be, in those days, Captain Marvel, who spent all his time hanging from strings, which you could see quite easily on the film. He's supposed to be flying through the air, but all the strings seemed to be black and you could see them everywhere. And he had a fan in front of him, which made he was flying through the air. And there was Buck Rogers, I think, there was another serial, Batman, and then there was a rather long western, which was a B film, which wasn't very good quality, and then the pandemonium would start in the Gem until the end of the show. The seating was all like common to most district cinemas, in that you had posh seats at the back and a rope barrier between the two, and not so posh seats at the front. And they were known as top doors and bottom doors. And at the bottom doors, when I first went to the Gem, there were forms. And then Captain Rowe, in his wisdom, decided to have all the forms upholstered, and we had them cushioned. And we thought this was very good. It was very comfortable, rather than sitting on the boards. But no sooner had he done that, he went a step further and threw the forms out and moved the top door seats into the bottom doors. And this was sheer ostentation. We didn't need comfort like that, but nevertheless we accepted it. And the prices didn't increase. Another thing that Captain Rowe, the owner, did was the people who lived opposite the Gem lost quite a bit of light when he built the Gem Cinema, it being 2 stories at least high, probably a bit more. And he let all the people who lived in the top houses opposite the Gem have free entrance to the Gem as long as they lived there, which was, I don't think you'd get that off Sky these days, a Virgin or anything like that. But that's what he did. It was a very beneficial to the people who lived there. On leaving the evening performances, it was inevitable that everybody would pass a chip shop. There were so many in Brownlow Fold that you could hardly get home without passing one. And it was again a ritual that you'd meet somebody else who you knew in there who was on the way home as well. You'd also pass public houses, and they would seem to be more full and more of them than there are now. So you could say there was a lot more social amenities than exist now. There were no takeaways other than the chip shop, but people would bump into each other a lot more frequently than they did. So the cinema, and in my case particularly the Gem, was, as I said at the beginning, more than a film place, it was a social event as well. Thank you.